12:02. Sorry, got to drop you off. To ask or drop him off. I'm not sure you got another. And then our school district.
I show 1 minute. She is. I can hear her. I show 9:30.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's call to order the regular meeting of the Board of Directors of the Western Municipal Water District. Tammy, would you please conduct a roll call?
Thank you. Good morning. Director Torres.
Here.
Director Dinstedt. Present. Director Roten.
I am here. Good morning.
And Director Risby.
Good morning, I'm here.
Good morning, President Gardner.
I am here as well.
Thank you, President Gardner. You do have a quorum today.
Great, thank you very much. And we are going to be led in the pledge this morning by Sonia Zeit. Sonia.
Hi, good
And
morning.
the routine, as you know, is you get to tell us a little about you.
Okay, I am the office manager here at the Meridian facility, and I'm also the executive assistant to the GM and deputy GM, and I have been here for 16 years.
Wow, didn't know we hired that young.
We did. I was just a baby.
So, okay,
Okay. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
thank you, Sonia.
And I do remember when.
Don't say whether she was a baby.
Okay, this is the time for public comments on anything within the jurisdiction of the board that is not on the agenda. Tammy, do we have any?
We have no comments today. I've received no written comments, and there are no requests to speak.
Okay, thank you. Brings us then to the consent calendar. We have 4 items. Does anybody wish to pull one of those items for discussion?
Move to approve the entire calendar.
Okay, we have a motion
I'll second.
and a second. And again, just to verify, no public comment?
No public comment.
Okay, thank you. Would you do a roll call vote, please?
Director Torres?
Yes.
Director Denstedt?
Aye.
Director Roten?
Yes.
Director Rizvi?
Yes.
President Gardner?
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries 5-0.
Thank you very much. Mr. General Manager, have we anything to add to the agenda?
President Gardner, there's nothing to add to the agenda. I would like to request that we move closed session up to now to take before the action items. We have a lawyer that needs to move on to some other important meetings, so if we could take it now, that would be great.
Okay, we will do that. So we will adjourn to closed session, take that item out of order, and we'll be back, I think, fairly quickly. I don't anticipate this is a real long discussion.
We'll see what the board does.
Yes, well, yeah, one never knows.
President Gardner, if I may, maybe I'll read us in. Okay, pull it up here. At this time, the Board of Directors for the Western Municipal Water District will go into closed session pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9. Thank you.
Okay, we'll be back.
they may also feel a little pressure if they understand that the approval is on the things that have been discussed, at the rates that have been discussed.
Yeah.
That may put a little pressure on them to say, okay, yeah, we'll take that.
So we haven't obviously retained them yet.
Right.
You guys, the board has given staff
Yeah.
and Andre, like.
Yeah,
approval
there's
to
nothing.
Recording in progress.
Okay, we have returned from closed session, and I will turn it over to the general counsel for a quick statement on reportable actions.
Thank you, President Gardner. The Board of Directors for Western Municipal Water District met in closed session and voted 5-0 to give direction to General Manager and General Counsel to enter into an agreement with Singleton Schreiber to represent the district in the multi-district class action PFAS litigation pursuant to certain terms that can be reached, an agreeable contract. So thank you, Board. Thank you, President.
Thank you very much. Brings us to our action items. Our first item is, it's listed as consider ad hoc advisory committee findings and recommendation for board action. We have a situation where Director Torres has complaints filed at the Fair Political Practices Commission, and they have opened cases. Our rules require that when a competent agency, and I'll have General Counsel describe this maybe a little better, but when a agency with authority is looking at what one of our members has done or not done that could result in some kind of penalty, we are required to report that to our board through the President and General Counsel or to the board itself, the full board. And that didn't happen. So I appointed a committee of directors, Roten and Rizvi, to look at the circumstances and come back with a finding of whether, in their view, a violation of our rules occurred or did not occur. And we have that now as a letter to the board from General Counsel. The committee worked closely with the General Counsel and with the General Manager's office in their deliberations, and they will describe that. But Holland, do you want to step in a little bit, and then we'll
go
from there?
Thank you, President Gardner. So the ethics policy provides that any pending or completed enforcement action by any enforcement agency needs to be self-reported to the president or the general counsel's office. President Gardner, you set up this advisory committee pursuant to Western's ethics policy. You appointed Director Roten, Director Risby to that committee. We worked over the holidays and earlier this month to work through the documents and the statements provided by Director Torres. We discussed amongst ourselves, and the report that I drafted at the committee's direction, and I cleared it with both Director Roten and Director Risby, summarizes the committee's findings, and they, even though they did not have to, they chose to give a recommendation for how they believe that the board should handle this matter. I will stop there, but I'm available to answer any questions, particularly on the legal side, or or at least my interpretation of what the ethics policy says. I'll turn it over to Director Roten or Director Risby if you want to discuss your takeaways in the process, and go into as much detail as you want.
Do you want to go first? Okay. So I was kind of trying to look at this sort of like, because it's a staff letter, and our process is we have a staff letter, and usually a staff member gets up and kind of gives an abbreviated report of the staff letter. So I'm not going to read it verbatim. I do think it was very clear and written well, that it reflected the thoughts of the committee. And Director Risby, of course, can add in or subtract or whatever. So just a couple of highlights. The committee reviewed the information available to it on the FPPC's website and through Western Municipal Water District's General Counsel, reached out to Director Torres for comment and supporting documentation. After review, the committee came to the following conclusions. 1, complaint number 09192023-02837 was filed with the FPPC against Director Torres on September 19, 2023. Director Torres received a copy of the complaint. 2, the FPPC sent a letter to the complainant on October 3, 2023, requesting additional time to review the complaint before making a determination on whether to open a case. Director Torres was CC'd on the letter. 3, the FPPC opened case number 2023-00759 on November 2nd, 2023. The case is currently listed as, quote, opened and pending, unquote, on the FPPC's website. And number 4, Director Torres knew of the foregoing but did not self-report the same to President Gardner or the board because she believed she was not yet, quote, under investigation, unquote, at which point she believed the self-reporting requirement would have been triggered. So the committee finds that Director Torres should have self-reported, failed to do so, and therefore violated the ethics policy. To the committee, the complaint and subsequent case opening falls within the definition of, quote, pending enforcement action, unquote. And the FPPC is certainly an, quote, enforcement agency, unquote. In conclusion, the committee recommends that the board decline to censure Director Torres and instead, pardon me, issue a formal reprimand, which vote will be reflected in the meeting minutes. The committee also recommends that a request be made to General Counsel to discuss and explain the ethics policy requirements at a future board meeting. So with that summary, I guess I would say, I'll let Director Risby add in there.
I just want to thank legal counsel and Laura for providing us guidance and having discussions for us to come to this conclusion. And with that, do we make a motion?
Do you want to open it up
Go
to
ahead.
discussion and
Yeah,
question?
I think we should open it for discussion. I want to be really clear that,
Public comment.
yeah, we will. I want to be really clear that we are not looking at the complaints that are at the FPPC.
Correct.
At this point.
100%.
I do not know what they are. I only know that they exist.
We did not discuss that even at the committee meeting.
And
That was not the.
that is not a role of this board to decide whether those complaints are founded or not. And if they are found to be valid complaints and some action needs to be taken, that's an FPPC decision, and including, are the complaints founded? And if they are, what should be done about it? That has nothing to do with Western. So we're looking just at the narrow issue of, should Director Torres have reported that these cases exist? And, if she should have, I think it's pretty clear she didn't, but.
If I may offer some
Please.
some advice, I would recommend that we turn it over to Director Torres, if she wishes
Yes.
to speak. And then I think we should look at it really into, we should tackle one thing first and then the second thing second. We should talk about, was there a violation? What does the policy say? What were some of the facts? And Director Torres can give a statement if she chooses, and she can explain her side of things. And then I think we should tackle, what does the board want to do, if anything? And then we can move from there. So that would be my recommendation, President Garner. Of course, it's up to the board, but I think that would sort of, because it's a great point that you made, that we are not looking at the substance of these claims, only, the supposed violation of the ethics policy. So I think that would be a good way to sort of keep us on track.
Okay. With that, Director Torres, would you like to speak now? Would you like to hear what public comment there may be
I'll wait for
prior?
that and then I think tackle the first thing.
Okay. Tammy, do we have requests for public comment?
We do not.
Okay. We will then close public comment. Director Torres.
Oh, I said I'll wait until we tackle the first item.
Oh, okay. Well, I think then the first issue before the board is to determine whether the board concurs with the committee that a violation did occur. So I would throw it to the board for discussion and potentially a motion on that issue. Don't all speak at once.
If there's no further discussion, we can move straight to number 2. And the board can determine what it wants to do, if it wants to take the committee's recommendation or not. But if there's discussion, then we should do that.
Okay.
We tackle that first.
I think and tell me if I'm wrong, but I think before the board discusses what, if anything, to do about a violation, it really needs to make a finding as to whether a violation has occurred. That is the committee's finding and the committee's recommendation, but the committee is not the full board.
Right.
And the full board needs to make that determination. I think.
I don't have an opinion on that. I think that, it can all be wrapped up into one. I believe, if you, a simple vote and finding without, some sort of next step following that, the reprimand can encompass that if the board goes with the
If
committee's.
someone wanted to make a motion
Yeah.
that the board find that the committee's finding is correct and the committee's recommendation for a board action is appropriate, then I think that would be
Okay.
a fair recommendation and something that we could debate and take action on.
Do we make a motion before we let the Director Torres speak, or we do it afterwards?
I think that really is up to Director Torres. I mean, it's kind of normal to have a motion and a second on the floor before discussion.
Sure. Yeah, okay.
But I don't know that that's required. My only thinking is what Director Torres has to say could potentially impact the way a motion is framed. Although the way a motion is framed could also potentially impact what Director Torres would like to say. So it's not an easy one.
No, I guess I will just start with a couple of remarks. You know, I know this isn't easier and it doesn't get easier. You know, as I mentioned to General Counsel, as, you know, we went back and forth, I always had the intention to self-report. It had nothing to do with that. As someone that was there to author the ethics policy, and then re-review it with Director Gardner, we had several conversations about the difference between being under investigation, being found guilty, having a complaint, right? Somebody is, you know, accused of embezzlement, and then being investigated for embezzlement could be found not guilty of embezzlement. And so just, you know, we had those discussions. And so based on the conversations I had with the FEPC, I wasn't yet under investigation. I was accused, I wasn't yet under investigation, and obviously I haven't even talked to them since the last note that I sent out. So all of my thought process was just based on prior experiences with my own, with, you know, my own experiences with the ethics policy. But again, with no intention of evading or hiding anything. It was just really just based on, okay, I'm not being investigated yet. Like I haven't been found guilty of anything, or no enforcement has even taken place, which is what I felt, and that's the honest truth. I appreciate that you really looked into that. I can see here what your determination was. When the last time we went through this, we talked about, you know, we talked about lessons learned, and one of the things Director Gardner said to me is that you should have learned when it happened to a different board member. And the reality is that I didn't know what had happened except what we heard in the 2 board meetings, and you know, I didn't know. So I didn't learn from what had happened to that other board member. And so you know, I accept that this is gonna probably continue happening. I am in a high-profile campaign race right now. So moving forward, I will just, you know, declare or self-report every complaint that's gonna come my way. I expect it, you know, I expect a lot more, just because we all know that sometimes politics doesn't have to be the nicest place to play in. And so you know, like I said, I had no intention of hiding, covering, or evading anything. I was just going based on my previous experiences with this ethics policy. And like I said, I know you guys had a hard decision. You ladies, excuse me, had a hard decision. But quite frankly, you know, I think you all will probably understand that I disagree with the findings, but I do understand them. And so all I can do is commit to what I can do moving forward, and that'll be to, you know, change my strategy, behavior. I'm not sure which one of it is, but that's how it goes. And I thought I had made that clear to council, but it doesn't, with the quotation marks on there. I'm not sure if it was clear. I still am not under investigation, and when when that happens, then we'll find out if there will be any enforcement attached to it. But that, again, that's all based on my previous experience with this policy.
Okay. Director Torres, you said something that I would like to ask council for a little clarification on, if I understood you correctly. In my mind, if you are simply told that a complaint has been filed at the FPPC or the district attorney or wherever it is, and they have not opened a case, I don't know that that triggers reporting. Because as we all know, anybody can file a complaint against anybody for anything. And if there is nothing to it and a case is not opened, then I don't know that that's reportable. If a case is opened, I think that's the trigger point where self-reporting is appropriate. Is that a fair description?
You know, and we went around and around on this at the committee. Sometimes codes and statutes are written vaguely for a reason, right? You want them to be broad and encompass a number of different hypothetical scenarios. In some cases, they can be too broad. Some cases, they can be too narrow, which is why lawyers are plentiful, is because you're constantly, having discussions about, is it too broad? Is it too narrow? Different, fact patterns come up, and you have to sort of reevaluate your codes. The code, as it was recently amended, and obviously Director Torres, Director Gardner, you guys were on the committee, says pending or completed enforcement action by any enforcement agency. Does that mean a complaint having been filed? It may be sort of in the eye of the beholder, in the eye of the code reader. I think that is one of the things that the board can discuss, right? Is that what do you want the requirement to be? This is a Western board policy. So if you all want to clarify that says that a complaint does not trigger, but a case opening does, then that is certainly something that you may do. I will caution you, right, is that I think you just have to think about what you want it to say and what you think is realistic, right? Because in the world of politics, you may come under attack and you may feel that this is unjustified and you should not have to sort of give it the time of day, so to speak. But also, is it the rest of the board's business? Is it the public's business to know sort of what's going on from one of the elected representatives? These are discussions that we can have, at a later time. For the committee, it was sort of, okay, here are the facts before us, and when do we think that? Because I think the word investigation is critical here, but it actually does not appear in the policy. The policy says pending or completed enforcement action by any enforcement agency. So what happened? What is the FPPC? Is that an enforcement agency? What is a complaint and case opening? 6 weeks later, does that qualify as a pending or complete enforcement action? Where does a complaint being filed against one of you, fall in that spectrum? It's sort of up to you. But we are certainly, this is a lot of just what we do every day. So we can give you some wise counsel about this, and ultimately, I think it's up to you to steer the ship, you five. Okay.
Well, with that said, you can see my own confusion.
No, I do.
And just to be very, 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 very honest with you, the last correspondence that I received from the FPPC, which I provided, said, we need more time. We're not sure if we're going to investigate this. And then I haven't heard anything else. So whether it became opened or all of that, I wasn't, to be honest, was not tracking for kind of the reason he said. I'm very busy. And so, again, I don't, like he said, we might need to have these discussions, but in my mind, I was not there yet. It was a complaint that I believe was they were unfounded, but never intended to not disclose.
Okay.
Yeah, that's just the truth. Like I said, the committee, the ad hoc committee had a tough, had the tough work.
Yeah.
So I don't know if my comments do change anything or if what the general counsel just said, because I felt just as, not even confused, I just thought that we weren't there yet. And so those will be my comments. I don't want to drag this out any further if the board has something else to acknowledge.
Okay.
I just want to make a brief comment. So I think, that one of the reasons why we put bullet point number 4 into the letter was because we understood that to be your perception. And so we wanted to acknowledge that. That said, we all have different perceptions and understandings, and there obviously seem to be a few questions about this policy in general at this point. But the way it's written and the way that the committee interpreted the policy, it was pending or completed enforcement actions. And then there was another line about, the committee finds that she should still have self-reported under the spirit of the ethics policy, which the committee finds to be sufficiently clear and straightforward. So, yes, we acknowledge that there may have been a misperception on your part with this word investigation. In reviewing the policy, that word investigation is not in there, which I would have said it probably was before I read it. So I just wanted to clarify that. So we tried to take all of this into consideration and just look at the, like the TV show, the facts, just the facts of, how the policy was written and how it was, in our interpretation, not followed.
I just have a question for moving forward, so we're going to move past this, right? I was still at the complaint, in my head, at the complaint portion, which Director Gardner believed we wouldn't have to self-report. So that's where the only place I'm having a hard time with. I was still at the complaint. I received a complaint, the FPP is still looking at it. And even Director Gardner just asked General Counsel, we're not required to report at that phase. So while I get the spirit, but that's where I guess I'm struggling with it.
When we saw that there is an open case at FPPC with a number, I think at that point there would be a result of, some enforcement or not enforcement, pending enforcement is there.
But I did provide all of our correspondence, so you realize I didn't get a case number in either of those. I don't want to pull it up now, but.
I understand that, but
So-
as an elected, it's your responsibility to have that you do have a FPPC number. Do you see what I'm saying? If there was correspondence going on,
What I'm saying is I sent you my last correspondence with them where it still said we haven't decided. So, they didn't send me a case number. Quite frankly, I found that out through Director Gardner. So that's where I'm, I agree with the spirit of the ethics policy, but I guess I want to be clear that I didn't feel I was there yet.
I understand.
Yeah, everything I'm hearing makes sense in your discussions. I'm just wondering, with what you saw on my end, that you understand that I wasn't trying to evade or hide anything. That's and where really my understanding was not just in our policy, but in what the FPPC was doing. Yeah. Like I said, I sent you all what I had, all the information I had. That's my question. That was my question. Because moving forward, according to what Director Gardner just said, I still would have been in that same. Because according to the FPPC, I still had, they were still looking into it. But that was just my question.
Can I make a comment?
Please.
I think, to Director Torres's point, I think it's time to just move on with this. That we've established an ethics policy. I think we wouldn't be here if she had just mentioned the fact, hey, I got this letter, they haven't done anything, and it would have been done and over with. I think this point made, and we could just move on. So I will go ahead and make a motion to accept the committee's recommendation so that we can just move past this, lesson learned, and if we want to have a discussion later on, that we want to change the verbiage, because I think even if you're noticed and nothing is happening, no harm, no foul, if the phone call would have been made, we wouldn't be in this situation. I mean, it just wouldn't be here, and we wouldn't be dealing with this and having this conversation and have spent 20 minutes on it. So I think we just, lesson learned, and if there's a consensus from the board that we want to have a clarifying moment on this and reevaluate the language, because we've done this a couple times now. So that's my motion, just so we can move forward.
So just for clarification, the motion then is to concur with the committee's finding that a violation did occur and to
Accept the committee's recommendation.
recommendation for a reprimand. Is that
Yes.
correct? Okay. We have a
So,
motion, I'm sorry.
sorry, President Gardner, a motion for a reprimand will be reflected in the meeting minutes, right? You know, it will be, and your votes will be reflected as such. One thing that is procedurally quirky about this is that in the motion itself, you'll need to give it what's called a statement of reasons, you know, as it's written in the policy. So I think just sort of in a transparency thing, right, to just reprimand without actually elucidating what it is we're reprimanding. I think that's why that's in there, but it does make it so that for the mover here, you, President Denstedt, or Director Denstedt, you'll need to give a statement of reasons. So you can just adopt what's in here, and I think that's sufficient. But if you would like to, you know, to give whatever statement you wish, you may also do that as well. But Tammy, you should reflect that that statement sort of in the motion itself as it's reflected in the minutes, and I can help you with that after. Yeah. Okay. I'll stop talking. Go ahead.
Okay? Is that what you want me to do, to make a statement reflecting? Is that what we're needing, the clarifying point?
Can I ask for clarification?
You may, yeah.
So it's my understanding you can make your own statement, or she could also
Yes.
adopt the statement in the staff letter.
Yes.
Adopt the reasoning in the staff letter without repeating it. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
And that would be my motion.
Okay.
Okay. So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second, but I have a question. So the wording in the staff letter, is that on the first page of the
It would be this one, right?
number 1? Consider the reprimand? Or,
Yes, yeah, I think that's a good call, Director Roten. I think that would, well, actually, Director Denstedt, as the mover, does that conform to what you are moving? And, you know, and to kind of give the board some idea of what they're voting on?
Yes.
Okay.
okay, and I seconded.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? If not, Tammy, when the system is ready, would you please do a roll call vote?
Director Torres?
No.
Director Dinstedt?
Aye.
Director Roten?
Yes.
Director Rizvi?
Yes.
President Gardner?
Aye.
Thank you. The motion passes 4-1 with Director Torres voting no.
Okay, thank you. And yeah, again, just for all of us, the reason that we have this policy is so that our public, the people who elect us and who we represent throughout the district, not just in our own divisions, can have some faith that we are doing the right thing. And if a question gets raised, that we are acknowledging that and making sure that it's out there for the world to see. And then depending on if a complaint is filed, what happens with that complaint, there may be future action or there may not. If the complaint is disallowed or whatever is alleged to have happened doesn't violate any rules, then we're done. If a finding comes out from FPPC or a court or any competent body like that, that one of us has done something improper, then we need to look at what is the board going to do about that. But we are nowhere near that in this instance. This is limited just to should a report that FPPC cases have been opened been made, so.
Thank you for clarifying that,
Yeah,
Director Gardner.
I mean, we have no idea what the FPPC is going to do with this. I don't even know what the allegation is, or
No,
allegations.
no,
but-
absolutely, no, I think that,
So-
that was good of you to make the differentiation, and
So, okay, thank you. Let's move on then to item 7B. It's to confirm Western Municipal Water District's representatives to outside organizations and receive and file board director committee appointments. Mr. Miller?
Sorry, as we do every year at the second meeting in January, we review the staffing matrix, or the board matrix to staff committees. So I know, Director Gardner, you've reached out to all the board members and asked for their input. You shared with me that there was just one adjustment that you were bringing, and it's reflected here. If you'd like to go over the conversation that you had for the change.
Yeah, I'll just mention that last meeting, I asked each of the directors to let me know if they were satisfied with the matrix as it existed or if there was something they would like to change. The majority of the members said it's fine as it is. Director Torres pointed out that she has a work conflict with the Community and Governmental Affairs Committee and probably would not be able to make many of those meetings, and suggested that I reassign that or propose reassigning that if there's somebody who wanted that position. Director Rizvi did want that position. So the one change in the matrix, which is attachment 2 to the staff report, is to take Director Torres off the Community and Government Affairs Committee and replace put Director Rizvi in that spot. And just for any public who might be watching, our 3 committees are committees of the whole, and every director can participate and is encouraged to participate in every one of them, whether you are a member of the committee or not. So that's the only change, and I would look for, do we have any public comment on that, Tammy?
We do not.
Okay. I would look for a motion.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion? If not, Tammy, would you please do a roll call vote?
Director Torres?
yes.
Director Denstedt?
Aye.
Director Roten?
Yes.
Director Rizvi?
Yes.
President Gardner?
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries 5-0.
Great, thank you very much. And then we have to do a separate appointment of a Western Municipal Water District representative to the Board of Directors of the Metropolitan Water District. Mr. Miller?
Yeah, as again required by our code, this is specifically pointed out in the code that the board needs to take an action on our representative to Metropolitan Water District. So with that, I'll turn it over to the board for discussion.
Okay. Well, let me just begin by stating, I think everybody knows, but Director Denstedt is our current Metropolitan Water District appointee. Are you willing to take that position again if we inflict it on you?
She loves it, please, come on, we know she does.
Yeah, because my suitcase is packed in my trunk for the special board meeting that was called later today, so I get to leave here and drive to Los Angeles tonight. Yes, President Garner, it has been my honor, and I've had the pleasure of getting to know a lot of the individuals and representatives from the other organizations across the region, and it has been a very challenging and unique opportunity for me, and I do appreciate the experience. Thank you.
Okay. With that, we have a kind of volunteer. I don't know if anybody else is anxious to put their name in the hopper for this. I It is not something that I would be able to do at this point in time. I don't know if any of the rest of you are in a position to commit that amount of time. It is very noticeable. So I would look for a motion.
I will make a motion to nominate Brendan instead to the MWD board.
Okay?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? If not, Tammy, would you please do a roll call vote?
Director Torres?
Yes.
Director Dinstead?
Yes.
Director Roten?
Yes.
Director Risby?
Yes.
President Gardner?
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries 5-0.
Great. Thank you. Congratulations and my condolences. And thank you. Okay, we have reports now. Mr. General Counsel.
Nothing to report, President Gardner. To circle back very quickly to something that the advisory committee recommended at the end of their report is that if you want us to do some sort of training, some sort of confidential memo, maybe something even here at a meeting about that policy, and we can discuss it at a later time. It can take many, many forms, right? There are committees, there are lots of different ways that we can do it, but just wanted to offer that up as an option. If it deserves more discussion to get clarity, we can certainly work towards that.
I think what needs to happen is be relooked at. You were still unclear about the language earlier today, so, and yeah, that doesn't seem like a training is gonna be very.
I do think it, particularly with the FPPC, where anybody can file a complaint about anything, and the FPPC and their process looks a little bit about, does this complaint even make sense? Should we bother looking at it, or do we just say, thank you and round file it? I think in that instance, at least in my mind, the trigger point for self-reporting is they have opened a case.
You know about it, right?
Yeah. So in any event, I think that's something that our committee, Director Torres, should take a look at. And Tammy, let me ask you, please, to try to schedule a meeting of that committee in the not-too-distant future.
So Director Gardner, as a point of process, that committee ended because your duties had ended. It's not an ongoing committee, it's an ad hoc committee. So you would need to reappoint an ad hoc committee with either, you can choose yourselves again or any other members of the board.
Okay.
Well, and I would ask for a point of order if it
And
needed to
it's-
happen today or at a subsequent to be
Yeah,
agendized.
that's my
Yes.
other, I was just getting ready to say it.
Point of order.
We are actually outside of the discussion of the
Right.
agenda right now. This is
Yeah.
a bit of a violation. So we should maybe table this for a future discussion.
We will do that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else, Holland? Okay, Mr. General Manager.
Yeah, thank you, President Gardner. I do have a couple of good news items. As I informed the board last week, I'm super proud of our staff and our organization and our board for Western winning the top workplace recognition again. So we are we finished third in our category, which is organizations with 125 to 349 employees, which is a big group. And I'm super proud of the fact that we came out third in that. I'm even more proud of the fact that we are the top public entity. We finished the highest, and not only in our group, but in all of the groups. We are the top public entity in all sizes of organizations. So super excited about that. Thank the board for giving me the resources to, work with staff to make this a great place to work. And, it's an anonymous survey. It's run by Intergage. They reach out directly to the employees. The employees can answer any way they want to answer, and we don't know who answers what. And so the fact that we had an amazing participation rate. We had 77% of the employees participated, which sometimes people would think, well, that's not very high. I was at another organization where we couldn't get 30% of the employees to participate in my prior life. But as a leadership team, we're really proud of our staff and what we've accomplished. But we're overachievers as a leadership team. So, of course, what we first did is we started pouring into the discussion. So when you answer the survey questions, you can say, one of the questions is, do you think the general manager is leading the organization in the right direction? And so you can say, I strongly agree, or I strongly disagree, or you can answer it, and then you can click a drop down and you can type a response, which I ask the employees to please type responses. And don't just type negative responses, type positive responses, and type constructive responses, because we as a leadership team, even though we are really proud to be a top workplace, we want to make this an even better place for the employees. So it's those comments that I pour into to see how we can even improve on where we are. And we got over 400 comments. So we are reading every single one of those comments. And we got an amazing amount of positive comments. Those aren't negative comments. That's not 400 negative comments. So to me, it's really rewarding for how that was handled by the employees. And, you know, I think that this is a long effort that we've been, this has been a journey. This is, I think, our 5th employee survey. And so we've been constantly improving. And I think that it's good to reach out to the employees and get anonymous feedback, because we want to make sure that we're not missing anything. And we want to make sure that we're providing a workplace that people keep coming back to. And I think that's working. So really happy for that. And I want to thank the board for providing staff with the resources to make this a top workplace. The second thing, we went to closed session to inform the board of litigation in the Martin versus City of Norco claim. And I told the board that we were working with the lawyers and our insurance company to get dismissed from that case. I'd just like to inform the board that we've been dismissed from that case. It had nothing to do with us. So those are my 2 comments. We're going to have a water supply update. Any questions on the comments so far?
Director Izzi?
I just say congratulations and great job. We're proud of you guys, so thank you.
I would just like to, excuse me, thank Craig and the management team for making this a top place to work. And I think most of our employees really are glad that they work at Western. And that's a good thing. It's good for the employees who are here, but it also makes us a more attractive place when we are looking for new employees. So it's actually it's a good recruiting tool. So well done, all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Ryan, yep, I see Ryan on there. Ryan is going to give us the most recent information that he has on the water supply conditions. Ryan?
Thank you, Craig. Good morning, President Gardner and directors. I hope you're all doing well. I do have the pleasure of giving a January update on water supply conditions. Next slide, please. So I'm going to start with the latest and greatest hydrologic conditions on the state side as well as the Colorado River side. And the picture in the background on this slide should give you an indication of how we're progressing so far this winter. Next slide, please. Starting up in the Sierra, precipitation with the 8-station index. Currently, you see at the bottom of the graph, current year, we've only received about 12 inches. Do note that this was about 2 weeks ago, so we have gotten a little bit more, but we're still trending but below the average. And you can see the light blue or gray compared to last year. We're well behind that great wet year that we had last year. according to January 4th, 62% below normal. Next slide. Moving on to snowpack, again in Northern Sierra, again below average, about 38%, only 4 inches of snow. This was back in January 4th when DWR went out and did their snow survey. We have gotten a little bit more snow. I'm sure you've been following articles in the news. There have been storms that have come through, so it's gone up a little bit. But again, the trend is still below average and certainly not comparable to last year. Next slide. On a positive note, we did get some moderate gains in Lake Oroville storage. You can see there right in the middle, the orange line with the red circle, current year, 2.42 million acre feet, and the red circle indicates mid-December to late December, we got about 100,000 acre feet increase in storage in Oroville, which is really good news. And you can see that large kind of tan band flood regulation storage boundary. Obviously, from a flood control perspective, that's really important for the state on how they manage the levels of Lake Oroville. Max capacity of 3.54 million acre feet and what I call a minimum capacity of 1.6 million acre feet for regulatory and non-state water project contractor needs. Next slide. Switching gears over to the Colorado River Basin, kind of the same story, off to a slow start this year. Only about 4.1 inches, 64% of normal. Again, this was on January 4th, but compared to average and again to the great year last year, we're still tracking below. So fingers crossed we get some wet months in February, March, and April. Next slide. Again, on a positive note, improved conditions in Lake Mead compared to 2020 and 23. If you recall, we had dropped down below, if you see on the left-hand side, 1,050 elevation feet, which dropped us into what's called a level 2 shortage condition. This triggered a lot of discussion around the 7 basin states, the federal government talking about drought contingency planning. Heavy negotiations still continue. Fortunately, in 2023, we had that wet year, brought us out of level 2 shortage. We're still in level 1 shortage. And you can see as of the end of December, we're at 1,068 feet. And the red or orange line is the projection from USBR, federal government, through the end of 2024. So hopefully a little increase, but they project it will kind of get back down closer to that 1,050 mark, elevation-wise. Next slide. Switching gears a little bit to kind of the 2024 water surplus and drought management and outlook. Next slide. I think everybody heard back in early December, California Department of Water Resources announced the initial state water project allocation of 10% for calendar year 2024. This is a relatively conservative and probably appropriate allocation that they initially put out. DWR does estimate that there's at least a 90% chance that it will get better above 10%, and we should likely see an increase in the allocation month by month. As a reminder, DWR does their snow surveys and allocation announcements more or less the first week of each month from now through April, sometimes May. They also do estimate probably, it's a little premature, but hopefully if we get a little more wet conditions, the allocation will end up somewhere between 10 and 50% respectively. So we'll see where that goes. Next slide. Good news on the metropolitan side and good news for Western and all of Met's member agencies. Because of that wet 2023 year, Metropolitan has another banner storage year, highest on record, 3.4 million acre feet at the end of 2023. So Metropolitan did a fantastic job of capturing as much of that water in 2023 as they could. And you can see the last 20, 25 years where storage has gone up and down a little bit, but you can see at least in the last 5, 6 years, they've really ramped up the storage, which is really beneficial because we know the droughts will come in the future. Next slide. So here's Metropolitan's outlook for 2024. Starting at the bottom, two supply sources, Colorado River, they're estimating about 900 million acre-feet of supply coming off the Colorado River. And with the current State Water Project allocation of 10%, that equates for Metropolitan to about 200,000 acre-feet, giving a total supply of about 1.15 million acre-feet. On the demand side, you see at the top, they're estimating 1.56 million acre-feet of demand on Metropolitan supplies. So the gap or the difference between demand and supply is just over 400,000 acre-feet. And as we just saw, fortunately, Metropolitan does have that amount of water in storage, so they will be able to meet those demands should they come to fruition. Next slide, please. Just a little background again on the State Water Project allocation. This is looking backwards the last 20 years. You can see how it goes up and down from year to year. I'll just highlight the last 4 years, 21 and 22, we had back-to-back 5% allocations, which I believe was the first time ever, followed by 100% allocation in 2023. So we heard the word whiplash a lot last year, and we're seeing that again with the initial allocation again for 2024. Again, fingers crossed that we get some more rain and snowpack. Next slide. This was a nice new graphic that Metropolitan staff put together. You know, as Metropolitan member agency staff, we always kind of question. Sorry, let me take a step back. Metropolitan has a water supply and drought management document that dictates where water gets pulled from or stored. It's kind of a priority ranking. And from time to time, some of the member agencies kind of say, hey, how and when do you decide where to put water and when do you take water? So this was a nice new graphic specific to State Water Project allocations, kind of showing a balanced approach. On the left-hand side, you'll see when does Met kind of declare some of its drought actions in its management plan. And they said, well, kind of anytime State Water Project allocation is under 25%, which is why you see the needle on the left-hand side as of today, right? Because we're at a 10%. And then they said on the surplus or storage side of things, if the State Water Project allocation is on, above 30%, usually we're looking to store water. And there's a lot that goes behind that, but it was a nice, simple graphic. And obviously they have to take into account Colorado River supplies in addition to State Water Project. But it was nice that they kind of gave you where does the needle fall. 25 to 30% is kind of where they kind of swing for pulling water from storage versus storing water. Next slide. Okay, to wrap it up, just a couple highlights. Went over the 10% initial State Water Project allocation. That is initial. We do expect it to go up. Metropolitan, given the 10% allocation, they did stop delivery of groundwater conjunctive use programs. Western currently participates in the cyclic storage program. One of our member agencies, Elsinore Valley Municipal Water District, participates in what's called the dry year yield program. They're both storage programs through Metropolitan, but Metropolitan did send a letter to us and all the other member agencies saying, as of now, they're going to stop delivering water to these storage programs. Hopefully that'll change if and when the State Water Project allocation increases. Just as a reminder and kudos to the board, following your approval of us to go find surplus water and storage agreements back in 2023, the board has approved an agreement with Jurupa Community Services District, Inland Empire Utilities Agency, and Metropolitan for their cyclic and cost offset programs. And to date in 2023, even though it's a slow start from precip and snowpack and State Water Project allocation perspective, we were able to purchase 3,600 acre-feet from IUA. So that's in a bank account under Western's name now. And we were also able to purchase 1,670 acre-feet from Metropolitan through IUA and JCSD and store that in the Chino Basin. So that's wet water deliveries that was physically recharged into the basins over in the Chino Basin. And of course, we continue our never-ending pursuit to find additional water supplies and storage locations. Next slide. With that, I'll be happy to take any questions.
Okay, does anyone have questions?
I do. Go ahead. I just wanted to go back to that, to the new slide, 2024 actions across the state water project allocations. I think it's, I don't know what page it is. Anyway, I just want to make sure I understood this. So if the state water project allocation is 25% or less, then they would pull from storage, but if it's more than that, they would put into storage. Is that what you said?
That's correct. You got it right. And
Okay.
we should be careful with those numbers, right? Metropolitan staff was just trying to put a nice graphic to give us a feel. Obviously, there's a lot of factors that go into that, but you got it correctly.
Great, thank you.
Okay, Director Denstedt.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ryan, I just wanted to know, the numbers that you're producing are from a couple of weeks ago, and we've had significant storm events that have come back through here the last 2 weeks, and we're expecting another one here this weekend. So when do updated numbers come to us for those storm events? When is the measurements going to happen?
From the state's perspective, DWR, they do them typically the first day of each month. So the official numbers would be February 1 would be the next official date. We do have access to kind of draft numbers, if you will, as those storms come through. But yeah, the official date is typically the first day of each month.
Okay, thank you. And what square have you picked on the betting pool for what the allocation's going to be? Because I know you guys guess. I know you guys all guess where we're going to land. So where do we think? Where do we think?
Yeah, well, thank goodness you're not allowed to bet on it because it's at the control of a couple of people. So I think that Ryan said, probably rightly so, it started at 10%. There's a lot behind that statement. Metropolitan is very engaged in that number and why it's at such a conservative number. And one of the things that I think, I don't remember if I shared this with the board or not, but there are regulations in the Delta about salt levels. So this is kind of seawater intrusion into the Delta. And so as the line of salt moves into the Delta further, there's mandatory requirements to try and push it back. And so one of the things that led to a 10% allocation was a lot of water had to be used from Lake Oroville to push salt back. And the cause of the salt intrusion was really high tides. So it didn't really have anything to do with water resources, water supply, rain, or anything else, but it's a rule. And so San Luis Reservoir is actually 40% lower than it really could have been at this time of the year because they had to divert water out the Delta rather than moving it to San Luis. And so that caused a more conservative allocation because the state doesn't know if it'll rain enough to refill that puddle, that bucket. So anyway, there's a lot that goes into this. As Director Denstedt is alluding to, it's actually been very, very wet, pretty wet with quite a bit of snow the last 2 weeks. So I think that we'll probably get a better outlook when the data comes out. And I think you'll probably start seeing state water project allocation moving up because an important graphic on there was the Oroville graph. And as you can see, that storage level is really high in Oroville, which will ultimately play into the final allocation number because DWR will say, well, how much water do I have for the whole summer? And what do I want to start next winter with in Oroville? And I guarantee you they're not going to empty Oroville because they're very worried about future droughts. So I don't know. Hopefully they get over 30%. Because that kind of puts Metropolitan in a neutral position or a
Yes.
positive position. So I think all the Met general managers are like, come on, let's make sure we get to 30%.
Absolutely, and I think that's going to be the same story for the Colorado Basin states, for everything, the storm events that have been going through there. So I think the picture will change for us a little bit as we move into February. I think they're going to show some positive numbers over there too for all of the storm systems that have been moving through all the basin states.
Yeah, and, we're pretty early in the winter. You don't think of January as early in the winter. We kind of think, well, we're right in the middle of winter, right? This is winter. But last year, we sat in Secretary Crowfoot's office the week before Christmas, so we were there like December 21, and it had not rained or snowed in California, and we ended up with one of the wettest years on record.
Yep.
So that was really only 3 weeks earlier than right now, and they basically had zero. So you just never know what's going to happen. It really depends on what happens in March, is what really will push us into high allocations.
Absolutely.
And it still is an El Nino year, which means ocean conditions are warmer, which likely would dictate a wetter spring, but you never know. We'll just have to wait and see how it plays out.
Exactly. So,
Good news, though, not only is Oroville at a high level, but Metropolitan's been, I heard someone say they're trickling water into Diamond Valley. They've been pushing water into Diamond Valley, and it's almost full again. I don't know, was it 93?
That was the last number.
Yeah, like 93% full, so it's almost fully recovered from what was taken out in the drought the last 3 years.
Yeah, I think they said they were going to leave it in the low 90s in case of any big
Yeah.
storms that would need to go in there, so.
So that's great news for our region.
absolutely. Those are my only comments. Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to director's reports. SOPA met yesterday. They took no action on a increase in compensation for SOPA board members attending, which means there was an automatic 5% raise. You have to, at SOPA, if you're not going to get a raise, you have to decline it. It's set up to increase 5% a year automatically. So, Mr. Money, every time Director Denstedt or I go to SOPA, we're going to recover $260 instead of $250. Don't spend it all in one place, please. MWD.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have started a new strategy. I am now trying to put books together for the highlights of MET. The agenda, I think, was just over 1,800 pages this last go-around for all of the committees, all of the reports, all of the things that are put into the board packet. So one of the highlights that I will give to you, because I won't go through all of those pages unless you're really dying to hear everything. One of the things that I think General Manager Sarah McDonald for sure was very excited about this was the adoption of the legislative platform by Metropolitan. I know Mr. Hadley is probably thrilled as well. They moved into their top priorities for 2024. One of the first things that were highlighted and put to the very top of the list, which we've been chiming on for years, is for continued support of imported water supplies, resiliency and reliability, including planning for the Delta Conveyance Project for Sites Reservoir, and agreements to support healthy rivers and landscapes. So this is a huge shift, I think, from prior legislative platforms, and that this is now being put to the forefront. So I'm hoping that this is a very positive change, that we can look forward to some movement with some legislation. We're still chiming on Metropolitan. I know some language has been going back and forth with 366, and we're trying to get those amendments done to incorporate some concerns that Metropolitan staff had from the writer of the legislation, so that we can go ahead and put a vote forward for a support position from 366 from Metropolitan. So I'm looking forward to having that come to a conclusion here in the next month or so.
Did they support it last? Sorry, I just want.
They have not yet taken a position of support. We are still waiting for that, and I still continue to bring that up at committee level to say, what's the holdup? Because this is all for our benefits for everybody. So I'll continue to keep on that, beating that drum until it's done. And then we have a special board meeting that was called this evening for later today. I understand that the Bay Delta Council will be in attendance at that meeting for that. We'll be having a planned dinner with them to communicate with those folks, and I'm sure all of these types of things will be discussed with that committee for what Metropolitan's intentions are and what we're going to focus on and how we're all going to collaborate on those issues. So I'll look forward to those discussions tonight and having some very in-depth conversations and getting to know those folks a little bit better so we can try to move Delta Conveyance forward and solve, you know, our water concerns for future years to come. This is the planning for the state, and we really need to get on board with making some serious commitments to investment to make those things happen, because as you guys know, water projects do not happen overnight. These are years and years and years in the planning, and this is about what does the state of California's commerce look like? What does our viability look like as a state, just for ag, for development, for residents, you know, projecting out 10, 15, 25 years. So we'll just continue to keep our finger on the pulse of that. Like I said, I think the general manager, I think staff here at Western, we were thrilled to see that priority shift, and that Metropolitan is moving that agenda forward. So, and with that, we are looking forward to entering discussions in. I look forward to having a meeting with our finance guy, our guru of all things money, to talk about the Metropolitan budget that will be coming forward. So we'll be having those budget discussions and talk about rates and other things. And then there was some negotiations. I understand that some meetings have taken place, that although I have not been given information as to the level of discussion at those meetings with San Diego to talk about potentially coming up with a settlement agreement on some litigation issues and matters that have been pending. And then the other notable thing that I will make mention of is the voting percentage allocations have changed mid-year because of the action that was taken by the voters down in San Diego for Rainbow and Fallbrook. LAFCO has made that decision that that shift is now going to happen. And a voting percentage change was made at the last board meeting to reflect the change for one of those agencies to move forward. I think it was a 0.13 voting percentage allocation that was now shifted to Eastern Municipal Water District, and that was taken away from San Diego Water Authority. So our voting shares for the Inland Empire now have shifted ever so slightly. So more to come on that. When the second agency moves on board, they expect closer to summer for that happen, and then there will be another percentage shift of allocation of voting to be taken away from San Diego Water Authority and redirected to Eastern Municipal Water District. So that's kind of the highlights of the meetings and things that have been going on at Metropolitan. Obviously, several engineering projects continue to move forward and have been reflected in the prior year budget, but we'll be talking about what's going to be what kind of change, because you know, water sales have gone down, our debt service has stayed the same, and so there's a funding gap, and we need to have a conversation about what that's going to look like and how that's going to affect rates pushing forward to all of the member agencies. So that's going to be one of the critical pieces that we'll be talking about internally, what direction we suggest to go in when Mr. Mascaro and I and the general manager have conversations in regards to what is our position and what stance are we going to take, and how does that look ultimately for our agency coming forward as we move through the budget process. So more to come on that. It's going to get very intense starting next month with those conversations, moving into March with a hopeful adoption of April sometime, fingers crossed, That is the target anticipation, so I will keep you posted as we move forward with those conversations and what that means for us.
Quick question on the two agencies that are, well, one now, I guess, is moving out of the San Diego.
That has been,
Contingent.
yes, that has already been an action that's been taken by LAFCO. I think it was Fallbrook first,
So I
right?
thought there.
Yeah, it was
I thought there
Fallbrook first.
Concern that they were going to put it out to all the voters.
They did.
No, that legislation, even if it was a passage, was going to be for future, did not affect
didn't include
the
this.
current voting status.
Oh, okay.
And so that vote still took place at the last election cycle, at the general, and it was overwhelmingly supported by the residents of Fallbrook and Rainbow, and I believe the ending result was close to 96%
Wow,
to
okay.
remove themselves from San Diego Water Authority and be put in Eastern's. I mean, that's a landslide in the votes today,
Yeah.
to get those kind of numbers. So, you know, the ball is kind of in the court of San Diego Water Authority to decide if they want to litigate on this matter and go against what voters have declared that they want as an action with a 96% turnout on that, you know, for a vote of, to confirm that. So, but again, that's up to that board to make those determinations. So, but regardless of what that is and what that looks like, LAFCO in San Diego has already affirmed that.
Okay.
And that's why that action took place. That's why Metropolitan had to vote on the new voting allocation for Eastern and for San Diego.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, other questions? If not, Chino Basin Water Master meets next week. Chino de Salter Authority, I covered that for Director Roten, who was so ungracious as to take vacation time. And it was a very routine meeting. They approved some contracts for kind of routine maintenance and upgrades. The one item of significance was, or two actually, they had their annual audit, which was an unqualified audit, which is what you want. And they selected officers for next year. The chair was supposed to rotate to Norco, and Norco said, no thanks. So they retained the same officers. Of significance to us is Western's turn to be chair is next year, so prepare yourself, Laura. And that's it for Chino Basin Water Master, CDA. RCRA.
We will meet next month.
Okay, and WRCOG.
Thank you. WRCOG, we had an executive committee meeting held here in this building last Friday. It was for a strategic planning session and workshop for all of the agencies to make sure that we were pushing WRCOG's agenda in the correct direction. We talked about the mission, the vision, and the core values, what we need to focus on. We talked about the survey results from all of the member agencies within that body. We talked about the current strategic goals. Have they been met? Do we need to change them and refocus and make any shifts? And then we talked about guiding principles and our work plan as we go through, and were there any course corrections that we needed to take? It was the highest attended planning session that we've had. We had actually 17 members show up. So that was really exciting to get more input from everybody. The surveys were very telling as well, because that went to not only the committee members, but it went to the agencies as well. And so somebody here chimed in on what our priorities are. And one of those things is going to be focused on is the legislative platform. So I'm sure our government affairs officer, Michael Hadley, will be involved more heavily with that as well. As part of my concern and Eastern's concern is that, you know, we want to make sure that we're pushing letters forward that have all of our member emblems on it so that they understand how many entities are backing those, especially when it comes to talking about water policy and conveyance. and good legislation versus bad legislation. And so that was certainly an overwhelming response from all of the agencies, that they really expect Eastern and Western to lead forward in those discussions, so that they want to understand what's important to the member agencies and how it's going to affect water service, their customers, their residents, their constituents of the area, and then their businesses as well, for the commercial and for the industrial things, since so many things are going on in this region and development has been through the roof in the fastest growing county there is in the state right now. So I think it was a very productive discussion. I was really encouraged and excited by the participation level that we talked about. They put out these new information sheets. They are working on, our format didn't really fit in the box of the city stuff, so they're going to work on changing this information sheet and putting this out for the value that we receive. And they talked about the speaker series that they did, talking about the drought, crisis aversions, water supply resiliency. And then obviously, one of the things that people most liked about it was the Water Task Force that we are all part of, and the value that they get, and the level of speakers and the interests that have been associated with that program. So that was really one of our highlights and one of the things that people really liked and appreciated the most. And then the number of fellows that we've had here has been 5 for the fellowship program and the interns that we received from that program. So we're one of the higher receiving of fellows, and I think that's been a really positive turnout for that program. And, you know, we'll continue to have all of those discussions and talk about, you know, water focus as I continue to be part of that leadership team moving forward, and having those discussions will really talk about what is it that as a region, how can our voice be more powerful for what we're concerned about, providing water service to the region. So more to come on that.
Okay, thank you.
Director Denstedt, do you have the date for the June General Assembly?
Yes, I believe it's on the 20th.
20th?
Let me double check.
I do believe.
Okay, thank you.
And I will look it up. I do have because the chamber asked me the same thing, and we actually already have the date for 2025, because we rolled, you know, the meeting space is getting to be more and more popular, and they've got one of the larger spaces that everybody can still hold it. We've had, and General Assembly continues to grow every year. And we had over 800 people show up for General Assembly this last go around. And so we wanted to make sure that we were holding the dates that we really want, because there's a lot of groups that are realizing the value of Pechanga and the meeting space and the amenities that are in the immediate area, and they're taking advantage of that. And so we're trying to make sure we lock our stuff in. So I'll share those dates.
Yeah, actually, I can confirm it is Thursday, June 20th.
Yeah,
thank you.
and I'll let you know. I'll share the date with Board Secretary for 2025, just so we have it.
Okay, other questions or comments? If not, Sarah.
Next month.
Okay, Aqua Region 9.
Oh, jeez. Okay, meeting for Region 9 is going to be on, I believe, January 30th, and it's at Desert Water Agency. And we'll be doing a tour and then having the meeting following that, so anybody is certainly welcome to attend that Region 9 meeting.
Okay, director's comments. Since you're all warmed up.
Oh,
Director
goodness,
Denstedt, we'll start at your end this time.
I have nothing in addition to add today. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Director Isfy.
Just wanted to share that I attended Good Morning Riverside last week. Very interesting meeting. Riverside is going to have their own Monopoly game, and you guys can choose places. So on their website, you can nominate places if you're interested. And I've seen very interesting places that I had no idea that I would like to go check out later. So that was very Last Friday, I attended Good Morning Corona, and then this Monday, I joined Congressman Mark Takano, as Assemblymember Sabrina Cervantes, and my Gracie Torres on the walkathon, MLK Day of Service walkathon in Riverside. This was my first time, so that was very interesting. A lot of people, and that's about it.
Great. Director Torres.
Thank you. Yeah, I also wanted to just hope everyone had a great MLK Day and Day of Service. I attended both a clergy convening Sunday night as well as the walkathon Monday morning to commemorate the Reverend Doctor. Just beautiful event in general, reminds us, that there's still a lot of work to be done in what we call his dream. And that's it. I have something I want to request, but I guess I'll wait until you get to that. Otherwise, like I said, I hope everyone had a good MLK Day.
Director Roden.
No comment.
Okay. I also have none. Do we have requests for future agenda items? Sounded like you did, Director Torres.
Just with all the conversation, I thought about bringing this up last time and I didn't, and I kind of regret it. But Riverside County Flood Control has been doing a speakers series on El Nino, which I think, based on the conversations we're having, I think would be incredibly beneficial. I've seen a couple of them at different MAC meetings, and I think it would answer a lot of the questions we have of what we can expect for the year. And I mean, it also has like a how to prepare for the storm kind of, ending. So I think that would be beneficial. I think they're partnering with their emergency management department, the county's management department, or emergency management department. So I'd like to request that they come and do it here. But that's my request. I think it'd be beneficial for us as well as the public that watches these meetings.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, we have some information items in the packet. If you have questions, let Mr. Miller know. We have completed the closed session. Our next meeting is February 7th at 9:30. And with that, we will be, whoops.
Oh,
I didn't say it in my comments, but we lost Ophelia
Jaeger, yes.
Jaeger, and I hope we
Yes.
adjourned in her name.
yes.
For anybody who doesn't know who and what Ophelia Valdez Jaeger was, she is a longtime community leader in the city of Riverside. She has been involved in a number of important things in the city. She was a key leader in getting the Cesar Chavez memorial statue on the Main Street Mall in the city. She was a key leader in getting significant funding for the Cheech Marin Center for Chicano Art and Culture, which is in what was Riverside's old main library. And it's just a fascinating place. If you get a chance to go, you should if you haven't. And very active in the community and in a variety of ways. She was a real leader, and she leaves a hole. So, and I will adjourn the meeting in memory and honor of Ophelia Valdez Jaeger.
All right, thank you.
That's it.
That's it. We're done.
Okay.
Recording stopped.